A New Beginning, the Dalai Lama's deep teachings on life, death, and rebirth. What if what we call death is not a conclusion but the gateway to something remarkable? For hundreds of years, the sacred knowledge of Tibet has shared quiet truths about life's end and what comes next, truths that stand in stark contrast to modern beliefs. At the center of this spiritual philosophy is the Dalai Lama, the revered Tibetan leader whose insights on reincarnation have stirred global attention, challenging both scientific paradigms and spiritual assumptions. In this video, we explore the Dalai Lama's astonishing perspective on dying and being reborn, ideas grounded in centuries of Tibetan spiritual heritage. What becomes of us after death? How does the spirit return? And how can the Dalai Lama's perspective guide us towards serenity within this continuous cycle? This isn't mere belief, it's a transformational viewpoint that may shift how you understand your own being. So stay with me, like this video, subscribe, and join me in uncovering the wisdom behind the cycle of rebirth, knowing the man behind the message. To grasp these profound lessons, we must first understand the figure who delivers them. The Dalai Lama is not just a religious title, it embodies a lineage of enlightened compassion and deep understanding. The current Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, is the 14th in a succession that dates back to the 14th century. Born in 1935 in a humble Tibetan village, he was recognized at just 2 years old as the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama, a determination deeply rooted in Tibetan spiritual methods. He was raised in the historic Potala Palace in Lhasa and educated in the vast philosophies and meditative practices of Tibetan Buddhism, but his life was far from isolated. In 1959, at age 24, he fled Tibet following China's military takeover, finding refuge in Dharamshala, India, where he established a government in exile. From this new base, he rose as an international figure for nonviolence and earned the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989 for advocating peacefully on behalf of Tibetan autonomy. The Dalai Lama serves as more than a spiritual figure. He links ancient philosophy with present-day thought, speaking across cultures on compassion, awareness, and the essence of life. One of his most influential teachings is about death and rebirth, a fundamental idea in Tibetan Buddhism that he has brought to the world stage. The path of the soul through Tibetan wisdom. What, then, does the Dalai Lama say about the soul's passage? Death is not to be dreaded. It is a natural part of a continuous journey. He teaches that existence, cessation, and rebirth are all guided by karma, the spiritual law that dictates future outcomes based on present behavior. In this belief system, physical death marks the end of the body, but not the end of consciousness. The Tibetan tradition refers to this continuing essence as the subtle mind, which holds the impressions of one's thoughts, deeds, and emotions. It is like a seed, destined to take root in another life. To explain this, the Dalai Lama often uses a simple metaphor. Life is a string of beads. Each bead symbolizes a life, while the thread that links them is the uninterrupted stream of consciousness. Between incarnations, the soul enters the Bardo, an in-between phase described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. During this period, the spirit encounters visions, some blissful, others frightening, reflecting its accumulated karma. According to the Dalai Lama, how one experiences this realm depends on the spiritual groundwork laid in life. Practicing awareness and kindness allows one to understand these visions as mental projections and move toward a more favorable rebirth. If one is dominated by fear or clinging, however, the soul may descend into lower states, such as those of animals or hungry spirits. Ultimately, the aim is liberation, to transcend this cycle entirely and enter nirvana, a condition of ultimate peace. For most people, though, rebirth continues, offering repeated chances for growth, living with death in mind. The Dalai Lama's approach to death is both deeply meaningful and applicable to everyday life. He often says, if you live with an awareness of death, your life gains direction. In Tibetan Buddhism, dying is seen as a moment ripe with possibility, a time to release the ego and perceive reality as it truly is. One essential practice he teaches is meditating on impermanence. This involves reflecting daily on how everything, our bodies, relationships, and material goods, is temporary. This contemplation is not meant to cause despair, but to liberate us from clinging and focus our attention on what truly counts: compassion, wisdom, and spiritual progress. Another key practice is phawa, or the conscious movement of the mind at death. This advanced meditation involves visualizing the consciousness leaving the body through the top of the head, guiding it toward an enlightened rebirth or higher realm. The Dalai Lama himself has shared that he actively prepares for his death with this method, applying the same calmness he brings to life. He also describes the signs of approaching death based on Tibetan understanding. As one nears the end, the body's elements, earth, water, fire, and air, begin to break down, leading to mental and physical changes. Recognizing these stages, the Dalai Lama says, can help one approach death with awareness rather than fear. His core message remains, Death is not a conclusion but a transition to a new beginning, rebirth through a Tibetan lens. So what follows after death? According to Tibetan cosmology, the soul moves into a new life guided by karmic force. The Dalai Lama insists that this process isn't random. Our prior actions generate a spiritual momentum that determines our future form. If our lives were filled with kindness and insight, we might be reborn into the human world or even a higher state of being. But actions driven by hatred or ignorance may result in rebirth in lower realms. The Dalai Lama presents a compelling idea that conception is more than a biological event, it's spiritual. A new life begins when a consciousness is drawn into the womb, magnetized by the karmic link between it and the parents. This belief explains why some children show signs of past life memories. The Dalai Lama is himself considered proof of reincarnation. He was recognized through traditional methods, dreams, signs, and object identification, as the rebirth of the 13th Dalai Lama. He has recounted vivid recollections from that past life, yet he also reminds us that reincarnation isn't about nostalgia, it's about moving forward. Through morality, meditation, and understanding, we can guide our next existence and grow closer to spiritual freedom, a life rooted in service and humility. What makes the Dalai Lama's message so powerful is how personal it is. Despite his global role, he speaks with sincere warmth and humility. He has often said, "I am ready to die at any time, though I hope to live long enough to serve others." In 2025, at the age of 90, he has confronted mortality often, especially in exile and through the suffering of the Tibetan people. Yet he remains lighthearted, even cheerful when talking about death. "If I die today, I have no regrets. I've done what I could to help." He has also spoken about his future lives. In Tibetan belief, the Dalai Lama is an incarnation of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, returning again and again to help others. Still, he has acknowledged the possibility that he may be the last Dalai Lama or that his successor could be a woman. He's even said that if he's reborn, he'd prefer it to be in a free Tibet, or anywhere he can continue his mission of peace. These thoughts are not just personal musings. They are a lesson for everyone. Death and rebirth, as he teaches, are intimate experiences. They invite us to evaluate our actions, goals, and deeper purpose. A global legacy of ancient truths. The Dalai Lama's views on death and rebirth have touched countless lives and fueled discussions among scientists and spiritual thinkers alike. In the West, his ideas have popularized Tibetan Buddhism, while practices like mindfulness and meditation have become cultural staples. Books such as the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche, which share the same philosophical roots as the Dalai Lama's teachings, are now widely read. His message has also encouraged scientific exploration into consciousness and reincarnation. At institutions like the University of Virginia, researchers investigate cases of children with past life memories, often referencing the Dalai Lama's life as a central example. Some even question whether the mind can exist independently of the brain, an idea compatible with the Tibetan belief in the subtle mind. But beyond science and scholarship, the Dalai Lama's guidance is immensely practical. He urges us to live more thoughtfully. By understanding death, we can shed our fears and prioritize what really matters: kindness, gratitude, and inner peace. By understanding rebirth, we gain a broader view of our existence, one filled with purpose and possibility. In an age often focused on material gain, his teachings remind us of a deeper truth. We are not just bodies. We are enduring souls, eternally linked to each other and the universe. How will you choose to live? What do these teachings mean for you? The Dalai Lama's insights are not just ancient doctrine. They are a powerful invitation to live with greater intention. What would it be like if you reflected daily on impermanence? What might change if you saw this life as part of a much greater journey? The time to start isn't later. It's now.